Yeah. Ok, apro.
Buonasera, buonasera a tutti, good evening. Questo sarà un momento in cui avremo ospiti, speaker che ci parleranno in lingua inglese, ma insieme al presidente Massimo Melega, io sono Paolo Fanti, intanto ci conosciamo con tanti amici che sono qui presenti, iniziare con la nostra lingua naturale salutandoci come normalmente facciamo quotidianamente. Quindi benvenuti a questo primo appuntamento dell'anno del progetto Manager Evolution all'interno dei progetti di Federmanager Bologna, Ferrara, Ravenna, e di conseguenza lascio la parola subito a Massimo Melega, il nostro presidente, che vi saluta e vi ospita in questo primo webinar. Poi ritornerò a prendere la parola per anche introdurre le nostre coach e trainer, Anne Stenbom e Helen Battersby, che ci regaleranno una serata, credo, molto interessante. Massimo, a te la parola.
Grazie Paolo. Le commissioni sono per noi un punto fondamentale sul quale insistere e sul quale chiediamo molto il contributo dei nostri associati, quindi invito tutti a partecipare alle commissioni nostre e anche a quelle nazionali, il cui compito è quello di elaborare da un lato e confrontare delle idee e dei progetti che siano funzionali appunto alla società in cui viviamo. Quindi, per esempio, la Commissione SIATE fa degli ottimi lavori sulla parte energia, ambiente, infrastrutture, ma le altre commissioni, anche Industria 4.0, la commissione con la quale stiamo facendo questo incontro, cioè Manager Evolution, poi c'è Minerva per le colleghe, insomma, tante commissioni, e in più quelle nazionali che si propongono il compito ancora più impegnativo di produrre dei position paper per il governo e per gli enti che in generale, per le commissioni parlamentari e così via. Quindi invito tutti gli associati a partecipare. Detto questo, questo incontro rientra in una linea di contaminazione positiva che stiamo facendo tra le varie commissioni, appunto, e il tema che viene trattato qui è un tema di grande interesse, ovviamente, interesse trasversale, e le due colleghe che verranno a parlarci di questo sono personaggi molto ben conosciuti nell'ambiente che senz'altro ci consentiranno di avere degli spunti utilissimi da usare proprio nella vita di tutti i giorni. Non vi rubo altro tempo e passo la parola alle due relatrici, che ringrazio per essere intervenute. Pleased to welcome you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Massimo. So, welcome everybody and good evening to our Global Business Leader event, the first event of the Manager Evolution Commission on the Federmanager Bologna, Ferrara, Ravenna. Welcome to all attendees and all friends that follow us. This evening, we discover probably new ideas about management in multinational context, because the question we would like to go deeper with our coach and trainer is, what are the characteristics of a leader in an international team? How can we develop this skill effectively? So we would like to find out more in this webinar. We are going to talk about this. We discover with two coaches, and I leave to our main speaker, Helen and Han, to introduce themselves, because they are speakers, they are trainers, they are coaches, and with a wide experience, not only in the UK, where they are based, but also in Europe and also with Italian multinational companies. So we hope you enjoy this 1 hour and a half we stay together. So I'm curious about this topic, global business leader, international mindset for manager. And I'm also curious to discover which takeaway we will have at the end of this webinar. So we all are ready because a lot of friends reach us in this webinar, and I leave the stage to Anne and Helen, and so we will have the time at the end of this webinar for question and answer. But we remind, if you want to write down in the chat questions or opinions or highlights in English or in Italian, because to share ideas is a common value. So these ideas can help Anne and Helen to summarize and to go deeper in this issue we could face together. So, Helen, the stage is yours. Please.
Thank you so much.
You can share your slide. If you
I will play from the start. Oh, good. I hope you can see that.
Not yet, Anne.
You got it?
No.
Not yet.
Not up. Okay. There we go. How about now? Should have now, I hope.
I wonder if Paolo needs to stop sharing.
Okay,
or... Here it is. Here it is.
So
there you go. There's a very slight lag. Okay. Look, it takes a little while for it to travel, even online. So welcome, everyone. And we're delighted that you can join us this evening. We're sorry not to be able to meet you all in person, but at least this means of communication is an opportunity for us to bring something, hopefully of interest to you this evening. My name is Anne Stenbom. Helen and I are founders of Global Business Leaders, a leadership development consultancy, leadership development coaches that we set up 10 years ago now. We're both team coaches and we specialize in leadership development and values-based organizational change. We have plenty in common. So we're women leaders, we're also linguists, and we have quite a few European languages between us, and unfortunately not Italian. So apologies for that. But do write in English or Italian, and I'm sure Paolo and Sarah can help us understand your questions. If you would prefer not to write in English, we understand that too. So we're very happy this evening to share something about our Discovery Prism framework with you on this short call. And just a few words about how we'll run the call. We have input. We'll talk you through some key definitions and points, but we'd like to give you some opportunities to participate. And for that, we've put in some questions on Menti, the questionnaire, which I believe that most of you have used in the past. And we also hope that you will input to the conversation by using the chat box, as Paolo has already mentioned.
And as Anne has already introduced me, I'd just like to add my personal welcome to hers. And just to reassure you, there is going to be a question and answer session at the end to any of your general questions. But please ask about anything you don't understand. If our English is unclear or too fast at any point as we go along, and use the chat box. We want this to be as interactive as possible, and we don't want anyone to feel left out or unable to participate because they don't understand. So we're here for you. And our introduction wouldn't be complete for us without including our values, which are not only a reflection of who we are, but of what people can expect from our work together. So, for instance, we work systemically for sustainable change that lasts, which means we ask a lot of questions to understand context, about the interconnections, to ensure that what we co-create with people is practical and sustainable. And this is also part of being holistic, integral, if you like. We know that being human means that our work is not just about task and cognitive capacity, but the ability to engage hearts and minds.
And our third value is integrity. We believe that all leaders need to be leaders with integrity, not just leaders, but people. The world could be a better place if we all were able to work and be with integrity. So we believe very strongly that we need to walk our talk, that we use activities and exercises that we've also practiced ourselves, and that we are guided by our values and we hold each other accountable for doing so. We like to work in partnership with our clients so that we don't put out a program that fits for all. We believe that every piece of work should be tailored to the client in their specific context to make it make most sense and to make them the most meaningful difference to people in organizations as we possibly can. Right. So what do? We work with people in all kinds of organizations in all shapes and sizes, from corporate banks to NGOs and charities, both in the United Kingdom, but also internationally. We help people connect the why and the what and the who for extraordinary results. So what does that look like really in practice? What are the kind of things we do with people? Well, we are executive coaches, so we work one-on-one with people for programs. We also run team development work, and we call this systemic team development because that's not just working with a team to make the team internally better, but to make the team better and more purposeful and performant at what they do in their system, as in towards their relationships with their stakeholders. We run leadership development programs for people at different stages of their professional journey, from potential to senior leaders. In fact, next week, we're both together in the Netherlands running a program for a financial organization. Sometimes we do workshop facilitation on specific themes that clients ask us to run and help them with. We run diversity and inclusion programs and a lot of cross-cultural work we've also done in the past. I was trying to think who I worked with in Italy before, and it's going back some years, but for a while I did a lot of work with GE Oil and Gas. I've worked for NL, worked for Sparkle Telecom, and we've done some work with Manpower as well. Helen.
And so, as Anne just said, people often ask us, but what do you exactly do when you work with people in organizations? And these next slides, these next 3 slides, show a little bit of more detail around the 3 objectives of performance, impact, and fulfillment. That's what we work to do. And they, of course, overlap in many ways, but taken together, they are a systemic and holistic approach to transformation work. So, for example, when lifting performance, we start with creating a vision of success. We raise awareness of what the situation is now. We increase intra and interpersonal effectiveness, or you may know that as well as increasing our capacity for emotional intelligence. We increase mastery, remove blocks, what gets in your way. We help develop leadership, people's individual leadership styles. We help them raise awareness of what their style is now and the impact that it has. And we encourage systemic thinking with people. And I just chose one testimonial that we had from a team that we worked with. It was about a strategy day. And the leader said, the obstacles in the team came tumbling down, bridges were built, and a clear new vision for the year emerged, one each member recognized and is committed to delivering. So all of those elements where people create that together and then feel so committed to making that vision come true.
And I think what we want to point out in particular is that we facilitate the work. We don't see ourselves as doing the work, we facilitate the work. And as coaches, I think what we do is, as Helen mentioned right at the beginning, that we do ask a lot of questions, and that brings people through their reflection and awareness to a different place. We want people to have a greater impact. And a part of that is increasing awareness of not just who I am and who I am in my team and in my relationships to my team, but who are we here to serve, and who are those stakeholders. They might be internal stakeholders and they might be external stakeholders. And how can we know how well we're doing if we don't ask them from time to time? So a part of the work could be, for example, to go off and get feedback about how we're doing currently. We want to work with people's strengths and their resources. We take people from where they are in a current position and build from that. We increase the capacity to choose a response, always being aware and that people have lots of choices within themselves, and sometimes they just don't recognize in the stress of the moment or feel under pressure and don't see that there are several choices always to make in the moment. So we try to help people be aware of choices and to choose the right thing for them. So that's about enhancing styles of leadership. It's about increasing dynamism and reducing. When we say reactivity, it's about helping people just press the pause button sometimes and say, I don't need to do a kick-in response to something. I can stop and think, so where else could we go with this? It's about being proactive sometimes. And I think a very important part of the work that we do is really taking the time to reflect and to think about, okay, so this is what we've just concluded. How did that all work? What can we learn from it in order to take that forward, and what can we do better next time? So when things don't go perhaps the way we want them to go, and that happens to all of us in work, the opportunity is always to say, what's the learning from this? Both Helen and I have long backgrounds in corporate life, in organizations in Germany and Spain, and Sweden and France, and in lots of different countries. So we've worked in corporate settings, and I think that helps us able to recognize the kind of situations and challenges that we're all exposed to.
And the third one here we have is fulfillment, because we talked about being holistic, and we constantly refer to the human side of us. And however far you get in an organization because of your expertise or brilliance in a particular field, if you don't have emotional intelligence, if you're then you will never really get to the very top. You will never be able to inspire others. So we think about how can we increase somebody's self-belief, and these are all interventions that are about getting people to work smarter, not harder. I'm sure everybody works really, really hard, but there are, not enough hours in the day. So how can we make our hour go further? And this, of course, is about different types of leadership of self and leadership of others. So that is about increasing our capacity to inspire those around us, of increasing our own sense of energy and buzz. And therefore, when we feel motivated, we can motivate others. It's not about changing who people are, but uncovering the authentic them, getting rid of the stuff that blocks you from being the authentic you and being able to really perform. And it's about recognizing we all have different styles, we all have different characteristics, we all have different personality traits. That's a great thing, because we need difference in order to create brilliance. So it's about recognizing that in ourselves and others.
And I must say, just reflecting over the last couple of years, I think probably we've all experienced some really hard times, haven't we, through the pandemic and lockdown and coming out of that again. And something that we've noticed more than anything else is the levels of stress and resilience needed are very much at the fore of the work that we've done, the work that we do. So this whole point about fulfillment is a lot about recognizing our own energies and consciously deciding how we're going to make the best of our own energies in order to perform well. So that's, for me, that's certainly been very much a red thread through a lot of the work that we've had in the last 2 years, certainly on the increase.
So now we've told you a little bit about ourselves, we'd like to give you a taster of our work about leadership and integrated 21st century organizations by talking more about our framework, which is called the Discovery Prism. The framework is described fully in our book, with examples, stories, and activities. But we hope, even in this short interaction, that you will take away something of interest, as Paolo said right at the beginning, perhaps a perspective that you hadn't considered before, or perhaps a clarification of something you had already thought about. Sometimes our own creativity is sparked by seeing something familiar expressed in a slightly different way. And we'd love to capture any of those thoughts right at the end. So please hang on to them as they appear. So what is the Discovery Prism? Simply put, it's a holistic model for positive change and a practical framework to help you uncover what is important to an organization and to its stakeholders. Why and what it is here to do, and for whom. We explore the kind of leadership organizations and the world need today, leaders who can engage with questions such as, what really matters to us? What is the change we want to see? What is our part in the bigger picture? And can galvanize others to take collective action. We find that in organizations, a lot of energy is poured into addressing questions like, what is our vision? What is our strategy? What is our mission? But seldom are they connected. Maybe it's just the executive team that talks about these things. Maybe the sales department has one idea and HR has another idea. So we talk about connecting things in a human way, not just through systems and processes. So for organizations to thrive in the 21st century, we must invite people to bring hearts as well as minds, because we're human and we need to bring that energy and passion. We must invite each person to see the difference that they can make, and we can only invite that if they are part of the process. What we most care about as GBL, Anne and I, is being able to create a positive and lasting change for people, the organizations they work in, and the stakeholders that that organization serves, which of course is internal as well as external. And that's what happens when we connect the dots.
Mm-hmm. So how does it work? Basically, we talked about all of these things and the work that we do with lots of different clients, and we came up with a way of linking all of these questions and answers and the key business tenets. So this is essentially our discovery prism. Each lens represents a key theme. So the 3 circular lenses, which I'm showing you now, answer the questions: where are we heading? The first one is, why are we here? And how do we behave? Second circular lens is, who do we serve? And what is it that we do? And the third circular lens is, where are we heading? And when are we going to get there? So in other words, and you've probably guessed this already, the why and the how is about defining our bigger purpose. Why are we here? And our core values. How do we behave towards each other? The second lens is about our stakeholders. Who do we serve? And mission. What do we do? What's the business we're in? And the third circular lens is the vision. Where are we heading? And when are we going to get there?
And as you know, with any good Venn diagram, with the 3 circular lenses, as we overlap them, we create 3 further lenses, which we call promises. Now, promises is at the intersection of our core values and our stakeholders. So those of you will know that we have the internal promises, how we treat each other in an organization. And that is the culture, how we are here, how do we work here? And then our external customers, our stakeholders, communities that we serve, we make promises to them. And normally that's called our brand. So that's how people know what our brand is. When we intersect, where are we going, our vision with our mission, what are we doing to get there, we have our strategy. This is what we're doing to get our vision, and it's a good checkpoint to make sure that we're doing the right things right. What we're doing in an organization, the effort that we're putting in is actually delivering the vision that we have set for ourselves. And at the intersection of bigger purpose and the vision, we have our legacy. When we do what we do, what is it that we leave behind for future generations? How can we test the strength of our legacy? By making sure that it's something that's positive and serves all our stakeholders. So legacy is very time bound. It's about what we leave now for the future based on the plans that we've made in the past. And in the center of this is why it's called the prism, because you know, in when you have a prism and you shine all the lights of different colors, and you shine, the light that comes out is a white light. So all the colors of the prism. Now this for us is metaphorical for many things. First, at the level of the people, once you have everybody involved in consciously thinking of all these areas, then you have, it's not about everybody agreeing, but everybody has been present. So you get this kind of concentrated energy. And when all of these different circles and petals are aligned, that is where you get something which is a plus. And what is that plus is an attunement, an affinity that comes from all of these things being in alignment. And it's a discovery because nothing, you know, it's about asking questions, and we have questions in order to elicit all of these parts. And it could be, you could be talking, this could be done at an individual level, it could be done at the level of a team or an organization.
And we believe that the work ideally shouldn't just be done by the top team, but should include people from across an organization. And it should be conducted based on 4 core principles. And the first of this is about being. It's about being present. So being as the not just doing, getting on with task, but stopping to take stock and realizing how are we being with one another? Because we think that makes a huge difference to how people feel at work. We think collaboration is a key part of how this work should be done, working with others to come to answers to the many questions that we ask around these key themes. Dialogue is absolutely essential, and we make the distinction between dialogue and discussion. So not 2 sides facing each other and seeing who can win the debate, but rather dialogue as deep listening, as trying to understand the views of many different people from their perspectives and finding win-win solutions that work for everybody. And all this requires the right kind of authentic leadership that enables collaboration and dialogue. And it's what we say is connecting the dots. So by putting the lenses together and by focusing on these key principles, we believe that a really truly aligned work can be done. So for this short session, we realize that we can't dig deeply into each of the lenses, and I'm sure that you will recognize from work that you do that the lenses, it's not something that you can polish off even in a day, you know. So you might have a strategy workshop, but is the strategy really done then? Probably not. It's something that needs revisiting all the time, as is values work. You know, values projects for organizational change are something that can be conducted across weeks and months before you come to a conclusion and before you realize that the behaviors that we're seeing are the values, reflect the values that are chosen. But for this session, we thought it could be interesting just to pick out one area, and this is the focus on promises. So promises, as Helen just explained, is the lens that overlaps the bigger purpose and values with stakeholders and mission. So the answers to the questions, why are we here? Whom are we here to serve? And how will we do that? The promises that we make to each other in teams, to each other internally, in other words, how we behave towards each other, how we treat each other, that's our culture, right? And at the same time, an organization makes promises to its external stakeholders, and they are, in other words, the brand. Unfortunately, we find time and time again that these two are treated separately in lots of organizations. So you might have HR saying one thing and marketing coming out with a wonderful new brand campaign. And if all goes well, those promises should align. But unfortunately, that's not always the case. And I think that perhaps in the past, it was easier to put out a message to customers and say, this is who we are. And clients perhaps didn't so much see what was going on behind the scenes. But in the world that we live in today, we are more digitally connected than ever before through social media. There's greater visibility about what goes on inside an organization. So what we tell our friends and what we chat about can very easily become public knowledge. And if that doesn't match the image that the marketing department is putting out to the world, then you're not in such a good place. There's a whole new branch of business called reputation management. It was always around, but it's become more important than ever before. So what we're saying is it's a tightrope walk, really. A company is authentic if all people that represent it walk their talk. Why is authenticity important? Because authenticity creates trust. And trust, as you probably, I'm surely know, has a direct connection to the bottom line.
So we thought this might be helpful because this is another way of viewing culture, which is how people experience working in an organization. You know, culture is the way things are done around here. And if we look at the tree in this picture, there's a visible, tangible part above the ground. And for that to be healthy, there's a whole set of things that we don't see under the ground. The root structure, which needs to thrive in order for the tangible to thrive. So there's a visible, tangible above the ground part and a whole set of intangible qualities and attributes that drive and make an organization distinctive. The growth above the surface depends entirely on its root system. And at GBL, we work with the intangibles, the things that you don't necessarily notice, and we support people in organizations to bring their best selves to work. We help people understand what behaviors underpin values, to change what holds them back and to focus on their strengths, as Anne said before. And as we know, happy, engaged employees have a direct impact on how well an organisation performs. So this is another way of looking at the culture is the behaviours you can see on the outside, but the intangibles are the values that are driving that behaviour. And leadership really matters in terms of what the culture is in an organisation.
Yeah. So just one slide that shows you how important the intangibles are and becoming even more so across time. So how companies are valued over time. This is from the components of SAP, Standard & Poor's 500 market value. And the source is from Ocean Tomo. I don't know if you've come across this before, but they look at the proportion of tangible to intangible assets and have run market value studies across the years. So according to Ocean Tomo and the research that they've done, intangibles now comprise 90% of the value of S&P 500 companies. This means that the tangibles, such as buildings, equipment, real estate, make up just 10% of the index's company value. Over the last 35 years, the percentage of intangible asset value of the S&P 500 has almost tripled, which you'll see on the graph. The trend holds also for the S&P Europe 350 index, in case you were wondering about that. It's to a slightly lesser extent, but it's still an increase. From 2015 to 2020, the numbers are 71% going up to 74%. And if you're interested, do look up that market value study from Ocean Tomo. It's readily available online. So what we'd now like you to do, sorry, Helen, I'll let you do this. We're going to ask you a couple of questions that we'd love you to input to.
The questions will be on menti.com. You can use the QR code if you've got a mobile phone handy, or you can pop in and go to the website and enter the code, there'll be a couple of questions on there. Just answer as all of them for now, and we'll be looking at your responses in a moment, but we're going to just give you some time to get
minutes to get on there. And
yes.
So the first question is, describe your company culture in 3 words, and after that you can go on to the next set of questions, which is a little bit more detailed about how you perceive the place where you work, and then we'll see what results come in. Perhaps, Paolo, you could put the number, the code, in the chat box, because I'm going to stop sharing so I can show you the Menti results as they come in. So that's menti.com 5306 4263. Please shout if you have any problems getting into there. And now I'm going to stop sharing in order to start a new share, and then I can show you the Menti results as they come in. Okay. How's it going? Is everybody managing to get in there? Hope so. I'm going to do that. A screen share. Menti results. Let's see what's coming in. Here we go, coming in already. 21 responses, keep them coming. Describe your company culture in 3 words. Heritage is an interesting one. Does that mean traditional, do you think? Perhaps somebody can respond to that, because it's coming up quite large.
Yes,
so maybe
coming up very strongly.
Yes, a couple have put that in. Harmony, team, technology, keep them coming. Oh, even bigger. What's the word for heritage in Italian? I wonder what that is. Open-minded.
I think open's come up quite largely.
Open, yeah.
Tradizione.
Okay, right.
There's also tradition in there, so some traditionals.
Yeah, so that makes it even stronger, doesn't it? Because traditional came in there too. Open, customer oriented, I would guess. We have impersonal in 1.
Yeah.
Dictatorial. Okay, good. We'll hold that one for in a little while. Yes. Open to dialogue. That's good to hear. Innovation, international. Marvelous. 36 responses in. Keep them coming.
Innovation is a big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, innovative, creative, new ways of thinking.
Oh, yes, we've got two. So innovative and innovation. So we can double that up and make it even bigger.
Yeah.
That's always the thing about word clouds. Sometimes you'd like to bunch words together.
Oh, we've got chauvinist in there. That's another one for later.
Oh, I haven't seen that one. Oh, maybe it's on this side. Yeah. Oh, yes, I see it now. Focused, sense of pride. Research-oriented, expert.
What's the number you've got, Anne? I wonder if we've just got
I'm
now.
on 40 at the moment, 40 responses, which is very good. Shall I have a look at the things still coming in? But I could already have a look at the next slide, which is where we're at.
Yes.
Yeah, this is how much do you agree with these statements? So the first slide was give a sense of how you rate your current culture. And these are the typical kind of questions that you might get in a cultural survey for an organization, measuring how people feel. This is sort of talking to the being, if you like, in an organization, not just what we do, but how we feel being in that company, because we know that when people feel at ease, feel needed and valued, then they perform well at work and they enjoy being there. So we've got some high responses there.
Yeah, and also we know that not everybody obviously works for the same company. So if you imagine doing this for one company, you'd get a strong sense of what people's experience was at this company. But at the moment, we're just collating your views here. But nonetheless, it's really great to see, because this goes up to five is possible, isn't it, Anne? So
yes, that's the top number. Yeah. Yeah, that's very strong, actually.
Yeah.
Particularly, I think this one here, I respect the leaders of my company. That's really important. And the purpose question, we find more and more on recruiting, and particularly on recruitments for a younger generation, that younger generation, not only, but it's a bigger trend than has been, I think, want to find meaning in their work. If there doesn't seem to be a purpose, then they are less likely to be attracted to that company. The last question is kind of a bit of a tricky question, isn't it, Helen? Do you want to say something about personal values and company values?
Yes, I think there has to be some kind of overlay, so that there are some values which we find that when there are values matches in organizations, the sense of belonging and the sense of meaning that people can derive from the company means that they will give more. When there is a big mismatch, when I'm talking now, say the company is unethical in any way and you're a person of integrity, people can either leave the company, or there's something that is called presenteeism. I don't know if you have a similar word in Italian, where people are in the company but they're not actually working, and in fact people can actively sabotage in many ways, small ways, because their values feel it's very hard to work somewhere where your personal values aren't aligned with company values, unless they're just, you may have values which are about adventure and fun, and maybe work isn't that much of great fun or anything like that, but it's something you do in the week and then you have your fun on the weekend. So that's another way of looking at it as well.
Yeah, but ideally we would like to bring our best self to work. So if there's a big mismatch between our own values and company values, then that's not great, basically. And when we say company values, that's a tricky one in itself, because sometimes companies will put their values on the wall, but it's not really what you see, how you see people act and behave toward one another. So it's an interesting piece of work to look at what are real company values and what are my own company values. Not everybody will be able to say what your own values are, unless you've done a little bit of work around that, which is the reason why we asked this first question. We've got 46 responses now. A shortcut to doing a values survey, and you might want to try it out, is to actually say to your team, or to a larger meeting perhaps, describe the culture here in 3 words. And they get to write 3 words, and then you say, and now say 3 words how you would like this culture to be. You plot that, ideally on something anonymous if it's a lot of people like this, because people are able to share more easily if that's the case. And then you can look at the gap between the way it is now and the way they would like it to be. A quick and easy way for doing a cultural values survey, if you like. Good. So I think we can share those responses, can't we, afterwards? And Paolo,
Yes.
you'll have these, or at least we can download them and make sure you get them. Yeah, interesting. So I'm going to stop sharing on this one, and then I'm going to go back to this one. Which is share again. Sorry, while I'm fiddling with this. And play from current slide.
Dexterously done, Anne?
Is it done? Yeah. Are we on? Good. So what really we're asking, what are the promises that your company makes? What promises do they make to you? What promises do you make to your stakeholders? If you're in a position of management, what are the promises that you make to your team members? That's worth thinking about for a moment. Perhaps you would like to share some promises in the chat box, and whoever has an eye on the chat box at the moment can report into us what those promises are. Do you work for the best company on the planet? Is that what they say? Do you have the best benefits around? Do you have employee focus?
Best place to work, for example.
Yeah, because employees are ambassadors of their companies, aren't they? So if the promises made to you are broken, then you're not going to be a very good ambassador for your organization, for your company. And you can't have companies where, people are told, oh, you must give the best customer service, and then the employees aren't treated well. It somehow seeps through.
Yeah, what does that look like?
Yeah.
Sometimes, well, actually, always before I meet a new client, I'll have a look at their website and see what the website looks like, what it tells me about the organization before I've even met anyone in person, and what the messaging is around that organization. What are they putting out there in the world before I get to meet people? I think that can be very telling. I'm not sure when you last looked at your own website, but it's not a bad thing to do from time to time, whether you're in the marketing department or not.
It's like when a company invests a lot of money into their branding, and then you go into reception, you get an unfriendly receptionist. It kind of undoes everything, doesn't it? So
usually at the doctor's surgery, that one, isn't it?
I beg your pardon, Anne and Helen, but
yes,
if I interrupt you, and but this question probably is well related to the survey we saw, because the value were hard, the minimum activity and score. This induced us to reflect, because the best in class for this survey was the respect for leaders. Our little word we represent here: respect for leaders, high value. Low value was the alignment between personal values and company values. It probably, and I ask you, this is related to promises, because a promise for company to a personal or for stakeholders could be high level of money, or respect of values, or respected planet or climate, or balance between personal life and work. This is related to value, and probably this is why we score in low level in alignment between values, personal and company values.
it's very interesting what you say, Paolo, because when we have been involved in working with companies to because they want to improve their cultures. And it's a very brave thing to do, because one of the surveys that we work with, they look at people's personal values, the current values of the organization, and the desired values. And if you can imagine across a big population, you're looking for matches, and the more matches, the more positive that culture is. Sometimes you don't have to look at any kind of data in terms of, you just look at the words, the top 10 words that come up, and you know what kind of an organization it is. And that people aren't really being able to be themselves in that organization. And the whole point is that when you can't be who you are, the energy, the lost energy that is taken, the wasted energy, and it falls, the greater the entropy in an organization. And the research that has been done has shown that people with, and there's lots of measurements, there's lots of data, so I'm talking kind of in general terms, but that with positive cultures, let's say, where people can be themselves, i.e. their values show up in the current culture, and there is a positive culture, that has a correlation with financial results. So it's not just, oh, this is so nice because people can be so happy here. It's about actual performance, all those things that we were talking about, that performance, impact, and fulfillment can come together. They're not at the cost of each other.
That's correct. On that subject, shall we just go to the next slide, which is, she says, here we go. What do these companies have in common? Now we're asking you to say what you think they have in common. Anybody come up with the reply? Helen, can you see the chat box? I can't because of the screen.
Yes, I was just looking into it. There's one. There's somebody who's very kindly told us that they had to leave, but saying thank you. So that's very kind. But no, we haven't had anything else.
Any guesses? What do these companies have in common?
They pass a lot of crises, and
yes,
they have a lot of debt, especially Elon Musk.
Right, correct. So these are examples of corporate scandals. All of the companies named on this list, and there'll be loads more, and I'm sure you can think of plenty more, and perhaps you can give us some Italian examples. Or maybe that doesn't exist in Italy, I say nothing. But anyway, these are examples of corporate scandals, and many have been highly publicized, and there are plenty of more that haven't been. But they are stories of over-promising and under-delivering from a corporate point of view.
And on the plus side, Anne, the importance of culture and brand and promises is that there are now these companies called B Corp, which were incorporated in 2015. And these are for businesses that meet the highest standard of verified social and environmental performance, public transparency and legal accountability, balance, profit and purpose. And I saw that Nativa in Italy was the first in Europe. And apparently Italy has more B Corps than any other European country apart from the UK and France.
B corporations, yeah.
B corporations. So,
So they're basically what we're saying is B corporations are the opposite to corporations that have had major scandals in the past. And perhaps more of you on the call will remember, I certainly remember the VW, the Volkswagen one in 2015. They had the major scandal when the company revealed that they'd installed software in their diesel cars designed to cheat emission tests. I happened to have a diesel VW at the time, so I was one of the very many people who are very upset about that. But it doesn't just have to affect you directly, does it? It's really not okay. And if you've been in the UK at all or read UK press recently, I'm sure you will have heard of the big post office scandal, which is why Fujitsu is now up on that list, because Fujitsu was the company who provided the Horizon software to post offices, where post office, sub-post office masters, people who owned and ran the post offices have been taken to court and imprisoned for cheating the system when actually it was a software glitch that the post office wouldn't own up to. So that's pretty nasty. And just as I was actually looking at these slides yesterday, an example came in from Exxon, which is ongoing now. So Exxon is the world's largest oil company after Aramco, I think, and Sinopec. And they have taken two groups, or they are in the process of taking two groups of company shareholders to court after they used a shareholders meeting to raise a proposal that the US company should be more responsible for the greenhouse gas emissions it's generating by the use of its products. So they're taking their shareholders to court. So that seems to be very strange and perhaps a story worth keeping an eye on. So lots of those examples, and I think we don't need to go on any further about those. And I'm sure you'll recognize some of them. Here's the next one, just if you're still on the call. Would you like to work for a leader like this? Hopefully not. Hopefully it's a dying style. Maybe that was the chauvinistic dictatorial one, Helen, that was on the list from earlier.
Yeah, command and control.
Command and control, yeah. There are lots of different leadership styles, and we're not saying that one style fits all, but there are certain old-fashioned styles that are less certainly popular and useful today. And what we do know about leaders and their leadership styles is that there is a direct link between the culture and the leaders. Yeah.
I think we all know that instinctively as well, isn't it? Is who we provide our best work with.
Exactly. Yeah.
And,
so yeah, go on, Helen. Sorry.
No, I was going to say one of the quotes that we really liked in the book was from Joseph Javosky, that he talked about leadership is about creating day by day a domain in which we and those around us continually deepen our understanding of reality and are able to participate in shaping the future. This then is the deeper territory of leadership, collectively listening to what is wanting to emerge in the world and then having the courage to do what is required. And we really like that because, in summary, I think the Discovery Prism is a framework to enable that collective listening of a team and organization in order to shape the future, the legacy that we leave, the vision that we head towards, the purpose that we follow in a conscious way.
Yeah. So I'm looking at where we've got to on timing, and I think we need to wrap up in a few minutes, don't we, Paolo, to give some space to ask any questions. But in summary, I think what we're saying is that it's really important to align promises. This is the lens that we've picked out of the different lenses from the Discovery Prism. And we can use a quote here that we actually have in our book, which says, "Your employees are the face of your brand, representatives of your company's culture, how they interact and think and operate and work together should be in line with what you promise to your customers. When your internal and external brand work in sync, good things happen. And we hope very much that that we've raised a couple of questions, perhaps some that you won't be able to answer immediately, but are worth going away and thinking about. And one in particular that we'd like to leave you with is, what are the promises that you make to each other at work, internally and externally?
And how well are they fulfilled?
And how well are they fulfilled? Yeah. So what we'd like you to do now is to use the next few minutes to ask any questions of us that we'd be very happy to answer. The Menti is still open if you wanted to put any questions in on the Menti slide, but for right now, so we see it immediately, I would propose that we use the chat box. And what we'd love to hear from you before you leave is what has been your most important learning from this short webinar that we've been able to hold for you this afternoon? Questions?
So the field is open for your questions, also in Italian or in English if you want, because probably was very interesting. And I try to start because my personal takeaway this evening, I noticed a sentence I take with me: authenticity create trust. Probably this is one of the best value, authenticity and trust we could build together with our colleagues. But I'm curious how to create trust, how to create partnership, impact, performance, you said in your presentation. And if I could ask something to you, you present a lot. Amazed your, and I very appreciate your present. And probably we need to go deeper in this big picture, because you present a sum and of your work, probably your study, and probably we need a lot of time to
assimilate.
Yes, to
Yes.
go deeper about purpose, mission, why, what, where we are, but what very stimulating. Probably my question is how to create trust in this complex world of the company, especially in multinational and cross-cultural companies.
So that, funnily enough, I'm running some work this week for an organization, and we're doing just half a day on trust as part of a longer session. But it's work that is worth doing and worth taking the time to do properly. And I think the starting point for that is really understanding, what do we mean by trust? Trust to do what? Right? Who do we trust? Oh, who do we trust? How do we define trust? But who do we trust to do what? And I think we've got to be, I think there's a lot about clarity, about definition really there, because trust can mean many different things, and it comprised of many different elements too. So you can break down trust into different elements and then decide what part of this whole puzzle are we really talking about here. We use trust as an umbrella term, I think, to describe lots of things, and that's why the first part of that work is to understand what is meant. What do we mean by trust?
But you're right, so right, Paolo, that is the fundamental thing of everything, because I don't know if you know Stephen Covey's, it's quite old now, the speed of trust. you know, when there's trust in an organization, how everything is so much more quickly. We're not sort of double thinking, oh, is it really worth doing this? Because, you know, normally he asks us to do something and then it's forgotten about next week, so I'm not going to bother. You know, other people, I'll end up having to do it all because nobody else will try. You know, it's as Anne says, there are so many elements to trust. Is it the competence? Is it the integrity? It is fundamental to be able to say, oh, you know, I don't quite understand, or I don't agree with this bit, or I don't see that this matches with that. Now, if there's not safety, psychological safety to be able to say that, then people withhold their trust because they're not safe in saying it. So you know, this is about building awareness. So we talked about the cornerstone of building mastery in any area is first to build awareness of what we want to grow in, and awareness of what's holding us back. And that's where, as we said right at the beginning, we would ask a lot of questions so that you would get real clarity on what the issues of trust were in the context that you were talking about. And then once that is out in the open, people would have to accept that was the situation in order to be able to work with it.
Yes, yes. And trust is an example of an intangible asset, as you said, for example.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
I think
Yes. We have a question in
there's
chat.
some very good questions, and really difficult to answer in, well, we can't do it justice in a couple of lines, but if you're looking at organizational change and managers not being performant as per the culture and values, I think change starts at the top. We've seen examples of organizations where people are talking, we need culture change, and this is what needs to happen. But if it's not held, if it's not considered important enough by the leadership team, it's probably, unfortunately, bad news, not going to happen. That doesn't mean to say you can't have change on a more local level. But for a whole wide organizational change, the leaders at the top have the biggest impact on what happens across the culture. So unless, not every single one, but unless the majority of your leaders are on board with organizational change, that journey is going to be extremely difficult.
And just a quick word with Ketty's question about what should we do as a manager when company actions are not in line with the promises. I think sometimes we need to call it out, because what happens is culture is like the air we breathe. We don't realize that we're breathing that air because we're human beings. You know, a fish would realize if it were to come out. So sometimes people don't realize that what they're doing and what they're saying are two different things, because it is so cultural that everybody's used to it. So sometimes just bringing someone's awareness is, you know, in a way that is observational. You know, this doesn't seem to agree or align with what we're doing here. Is that something that everybody's aware of? What's, you know, what are the consequences of doing this way for the promises that we have made? So the first level is always raising awareness, and Ketty, I don't know if you're empowered to do that, because then we go back to psychological safety, etc. But yeah, if you notice it, then it's an example of your values not meeting with the company values, and hence your discomfort in that situation.
Also a question from Victoria. Can read. What are the main barriers to organizational change?
Yes, Victoria.
1 billion.
Yeah.
1 billion question.
Oh, sorry, I was just reading Victoria Nerozzi's about the receiving responses from employees, and they're always in confidence and confidential. So you would never in order to do this properly, people would have to be assured of confidence, of things being done in confidence. So you're absolutely right there. You know, and the worse a culture was, the harder people would find it to give honest feedback if that wasn't the culture of the organization. So they have to be done in confidence, confidential. The main barriers to organizational change: bad leadership, lack of clarity, lack of direction, lack of alignment, on all of those things in the prism. Sorry, you've muted yourself, Anne.
Yeah, I did that deliberately to stop any background noise.
Yes. We agree with this.
Yeah.
Because all of us know bad boss, but fortunately we know good bosses.
Good.
And we know the differences between.
Excellent.
Okay.
I don't know if there are other questions or highlights, and we thanks all colleagues and friends that wrote. And we'll leave you 1 or 2 minutes to close your presentation, because I know you have gifts we send to our colleagues and attendee.
Yeah. Are you going to share? Yeah.
So what we wanted to do was for everyone on the call, or everyone who registered for the call, even if you didn't manage to attend, we will send, or let Paolo have a link where you can download the first 2 chapters of the Discovery Prism for free. And we'd also like to give you a very special offer, which would be if you would like us to develop, design and run a webinar on any of the themes from the Discovery Prism, specifically for your organization, we can offer 25% discount off our normal webinar fee. So our normal webinar fee is £2,000 sterling, and we can offer you that for £1,500 if you book that before the 31st of March. If anybody's interested in individual coaching, we can offer you a special discount package for 4 sessions on that too. And we will let Paolo have the details.
Okay, we will send this information to our attendees, and we thank you very much for this time spent together, and this, we hope, first webinar together, because we enjoyed a very interesting journey through management skills in a company and international arena, you know well. And I would like to thank you everyone for attending, and you as speakers. And now it's time to greet and to spend time to leave the floor to our president, Massimo, for a final greeting time. Thank you all. Massimo,
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
A te la parola. Grazie intanto a tutti da parte mia per questo tempo prezioso.
Thank you very much. It was a very, very nice explanation. We are pleased to hear your words, and we will hope to find such environments very often during our company life. So we hope to see you again many, many times, and we are grateful to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. We hope to have an opportunity to stay in touch with you. Bye and good evening. Grazie a tutti, grazie per questa serata che abbiamo condiviso insieme. Speriamo di presentarvi ancora altre cose insieme a Massimo e alla nostra commissione insieme in Federmanager. Grazie ancora per questa serata. A presto.
Grazie a tutti e grazie a te, Paolo, in particolare.
A presto. Grazie.
Good evening. Hey, Helen.
Good evening.
Bye, Helen.
Bye-bye.